Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about gold and silver today. I have a lot of people who ask me how come it is that I don't talk a lot about gold and silver, especially using gold and silver as a hedge against inflation with all the inflation scenario talk that was taking place out there. And it's because I don't really necessarily believe that it is a protection against inflation. I mean, I purchased gold and silver since about 2009. And when it ran up to $50 an ounce, silver that is, back in 2011, I thought for sure we were running into a hyperinflation scenario and that this gold and silver was going to totally protect me from the destruction of the dollar. That didn't happen. Silver fell from $50 an ounce all the way down into the teens, and I went completely underwater on my silver. Now, that was not a very comfortable feeling to be in, considering that I could have been using that money for other things, especially how broke I was and in debt and depressed and all the other stuff that was coming from it. It was not a good position in my life, and I didn't look at silver as something that was going to be valuable to me. In fact, I kind of was a little resentful of this, right? But as time went on, I realized that silver was giving me something that I really didn't have, and that was a bit of a peace of mind, right? Like, I had this box of silver and I could sleep at night knowing that if I ever really truly needed to pay a bill, or if a medical issue came up, or in the case of what I ended up using it for was when my car broke down, right? And I couldn't, I didn't have a ride to work. I couldn't get there. And so I needed a vehicle. I had no money, and I call up a buddy who says, yeah, man, I'll trade you this Tahoe for some silver. So I gave him 165 ounces of silver. He drove the vehicle up and signed the title over to me, and I had wheels again. And from that point on, I looked at silver as an insurance policy, period. Like, that's the way I look at it. And when I think about, like, stacking silver, I don't really think about, like, how much I paid for it. I just think about how much I'm buying, or, how much I'm adding to the stack that I have. There's a lot of ways that you can go about purchasing this stuff, but it's really more about the reasoning behind why you are purchasing it, right? So I see articles like the one I'm going to leave down in the description that's talking about, like, this inverse relationship from dollar to gold. Like, if the dollar goes up, gold goes down, and if gold goes up, the dollar goes down. Like, these, like, have this kind of inverse relation to it. And I think that's going to be very dangerous kind of strategy going into the future, thinking that this is going to happen as the gold goes up from the dollar destruction or inflation scenario or something like that. I believe going into the future that we are actually going to see both of these rise together, which again is something that, like, a lot of the gold investors out there or gold buyers, they don't look at it like this. They look at it as, like, the dollar's going to go down and that's the reason why you need to be into gold. But I look at it from more on a global aspect, in which that a lot of nations and people and feelings around the world is that they no longer want to hold dollars. But that doesn't give them any real other position to be in, because nothing else out there is really doing what the dollar can do, except for maybe gold, because what it has to do is be accepted by everybody around the world. Now, granted, there are currencies out there that may be accepted by a great number of people or a great number of nations, but not all nations. Like, almost all nations will accept dollars. There's very few people out there who wouldn't take them unless they were being sanctioned, right? I mean, otherwise, anybody would pretty much take the dollar. But right now, because of the position that they have been put into, where they are limited on dollar use, gold is really the only other alternative out there that can be used in the place of dollars. It is accepted. It is it's transferable. It's everything that you could possibly imagine needing for, like, a world currency or an acceptable currency. Gold and dollars fit the bill, except for the whole sanctioning thing, which is then caused the limitations. But still, when we think about this, if people around the world, if nations around the world, if corporations around the world begin to get very frustrated with the dollar or with global economics, right? The supply chains continuing to be disrupted or partnerships not being built correctly, they are going to get very nervous about being in their own currencies, right? If you think about, like, a world recession, the people are gonna have to run to where they feel the safest, and the dollar has always been the safe haven. U.S. Treasuries being the safe haven. Right? It is the only one that is truly accepted. It is the one that is guaranteed to pay, zero chance of default, and most people around the world still feel that way. Now, granted, there is a lot of talk, right? I don't want to deny it, saying that it isn't happening out there on how people are getting out of the dollar, but for the most part, more people are into it than not, right? So as people are looking for a safe haven, they're going to move into the dollar, right? And at the same time, we have this narrative out there that they don't want to be in the dollar, so they're going to get into gold. And these two can rise together during this time. So I wouldn't look at it, or I don't look at it. I mean, you can look at it any way you want, but I don't look at it in a sense that these two work inversely together. I look at them completely opposite of anything. Like, they are no longer tied to each other in any kind of fashion like that. They are independent. They are operating in their own fashion. People are either buying gold or maybe they're getting into the safe haven of the dollar, but they're not looking at one or the other. They're not looking at it like that, right? So this is something that I think is very important to understand, because there was a time that I would have agreed with the article in saying that this thing has like an inverse, relationship to it. And there was plenty of like evidence that shows that out there. But I believe the perception of the people and, nations and corporations around the world are shifting their thoughts on how this is going to look, right, as far as like this inverse relation, and that they may be getting into both dollars and gold at the exact same time. I know I am. I know a lot of other people are doing it as well, and they're doing it because of the insurance that the dollar or that the precious metals can provide, and they're getting into dollars because of the buying opportunities that may be coming into the future. I mean, this is really what's taking place out there. I mean, I don't know how many people are screaming recession on how everything is going to be crashing soon. But at the same time, they're talking about dollar destruction and how the dollar is going to lose value. Like, which one is it, right? I mean, I understand, like, you can have hyperinflation scenario within the goods and services out there, right, where people are like, man, look how much you're paying for everything, and tell me that there's no inflation. But then at the same time, people telling me that there's going to be a crashing housing market, crashing stock market, all these things are going to crash, which is basically going to give the dollar, like, put everything on sale, the dollar strength, right? You can buy more stuff with less dollars. I mean, I listen to these people, and I mean, I don't really listen to them, I just hear it, right? But, when I think about that, when I hear these arguments, and I'm like, I know the position that I'm taking. I can see how both of these can rise together, both gold and dollars at the same time, where the dollar, you can start purchasing more stuff, and then people will trying to get into a security insurance policy, a safe haven, and they're getting into the dollars at the same, or into the gold at the same time. So, uneducated economist, you guys let me know.